Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party has not occupied the media landscape in the last few weeks, but now they are back front and center in the media landscape because the MK Party has expelled 18 members of parliament and also because the courts have allowed for an appeal of the trademark case which the MK Party won. So let's talk about that. Why has the MK not been in the media landscape in the last few weeks? Part of that is because of the Olympics. Part of that is because of the Miss South Africa scandal. Part of that is because of the media not being very willing to cover the party in the same way that other political parties have received coverage. There's a reluctance from mainstream media to give a lot of airtime to Jacob Zuma, a lot of airtime to the MK Party, unless there's something negative that has happened in the political party. Mainstream media has taken a confrontational and adversarial approach to the MK Party, to Jacob Zuma, and they continue to do so. In some ways, I always think doing that kind of a thing actually is unhealthy, undemocratic, outside of the ambit of the role of the media, and counterproductive, because when you do that, the people can see which parties get more coverage, what kind of coverage those parties get, what lines of coverage those parties get, and they can see when there is, reluctance, animosity to certain political parties. The MK Party is a significant political party within the South African framework. It's a political party with 2.5 million voters. And that's something that you can't ignore. That's something that has to be taken seriously, meaning that the role of the media has to be to give that political party the same amount of coverage. And I think when they fail to do that, other spaces and places will do that. Platforms such as this one will cover those events with fairness and objectivity. So if you actually haven't subscribed to the channel, it's a great opportunity for you to subscribe, because these are the spaces and places where we have honest conversations, fair conversations about current affairs, about politics in South Africa, in the world. And MK Party has also to get fair coverage and get a fair shake. You can't just come in hostile to a political party simply because of particular individuals that you don't like. Another reason why the MK Party, though, has not been getting media attention is simply because a lot of the media attention has been taken by the coalition ministers. They have been occupying the public's attention, imagination, because when you have levers of power, when you occupy a government position, you can actually use that government position to get a lot of media traction, a lot of media coverage. We've seen Gayton McKenzie get a lot of media attention. We've seen Leon Schreiber get a lot of media attention. We've also seen, Dean McPherson get a lot of media attention as a result of developments that were playing out in their ministries, announcements that they were making. We've seen all of that. Even the Minister of Correctional Services got some attention as a result of those prison raids in the various prisons that happened. I think the Sun City prison was the one which really was the shocking news piece, which took up a lot of attention. So not all of it is deliberate, but I think objectively it's fair to conclude that the MK has not been front and center of the media space, which also we should just examine from the perspective that they are the official opposition. When the DA was the official opposition, they got a lot of media attention. I don't know how much of this also is because MK is still setting up its full media infrastructure, but be that as it may. So why is MK front and center in the news? Like I said, the party has expelled 18 members of parliament. These members of parliament have been expelled for a variety of reasons, and they will be replaced by Lucky Montana, Brian Molefe, among others, right? This is what Nhlamulo Ndlela had to say about all of these expulsions.
Why would you say it's unheard of? No, it is. It's possible, it's allowed per the parliamentary rules that you can replace members sworn in or not on the National Assembly. And this is what we're doing. I think maybe let's put context to this.
What happened?
Our candidate lists that were submitted to the IEC in effect, was sabotaged. We even opened a case to that extent at the Sandton police station, where we cited certain irregularities of names that were input there that were not supposed to be there. One of those being the prominent President Zuma. I mean, our strategy was never to have him on the list in the first place, and only to then bring him on later stage, as we did with Judge Hlophe. Now, what has happened is we then communicated at the point of swearing in with the 12 members. Now, when I say 12, there's 6 names that were there that we never got sworn in, and then there were the 12 that were sworn in. And we had to communicate with them. And we engaged with them in a civil manner to inform them that this is the situation and that they have to be replaced. And when I talk about sabotage, I'm talking about people who are putting in friends, community members, and family members onto our list. And so we communicated with them that, they have to be replaced at some point. So they're given 2 options as allowed by Parliament. We consulted the Parliament, and they decided to still go ahead and be sworn in, of which still is allowed by Parliament. Now that they're being replaced, there's nothing untoward. This is something they knew was going to happen, because the names that are now replacing them are the same names that were ought to be on our list in the first place.
Whose responsibility was it to compile the list?
Well, we had entrusted certain members of the party, comrades, who have now been expelled. And part of the reasons why they were expelled was for exactly that. And remember, we've always been highlighting the issue of being infiltrated and all sorts of rogue elements. And we've been having to deal with that. We've been having to clean up. We're a young organization. We are forming structures. And naturally, you'll come across certain teething situations such as this. But it's about us doing something about that. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're fixing this organization, and we're ensuring that we're duly represented in Parliament. Here's another example. At one point, and I'm sure with some of the interviews you may have heard, Judge Hlophe stating that there were some members that never showed up one morning, in Parliament. And that was at a critical time when we were requested and we needed to vote. Some members didn't show up, and let me tell you, the bulk of the members that were actually not there are the same that are being replaced. So we say we need to represent our party well. We need to have competent people. And this is what we're doing.
Now, critics of the party are saying a variety of things. They are saying 5 things in one form or another. Number 1, that the party is disorganized and unprofessional. Number 2, that the party does not have appropriate controls of how its information and decisions are made. Number 3, that this particular firing of these members of Parliament will cause party factionalism, it will discourage voters, and it will cause, just chaos. Number 4, that these decisions create instability in Parliament. Members of Parliament come in, they swear in, they go for inductions, they go for training, they start to get an understanding of everything that is happening in Parliament, and then whoop, you change them. You change them. You can't move all the time like that. And if you continue to do that, it creates instability in Parliament, weakens your parliamentary agenda, and then you are therefore not able to really stand out. And for the MK party, because they don't occupy government positions, it's going to be important how they stand out in Parliament and whether they can go viral from the parliamentary floor. And that's one of the communication challenges of being in Parliament, is that you don't want to just speak in a committee, in a plenary. You want to speak and you want those words to echo across the country. Number 5, another criticism that has been raised is that Dudu Zuma and Hlamulo Ndlela are just, running the party as they wish, and that these are just their own decisions. Now, let's look at the counter arguments to that, and then we'll weigh up where this particular moment stands. The counter argument number 1 is that political parties, especially in South Africa, can get infiltrated. We already know, for example, that the MK party was infiltrated at the highest level with Jabulani Khumalo. Jabulani Khumalo was a party loyalist. He was the founder of the party. They were working well with Zuma. They managed to pull off one of the biggest tricks in South African politics, because the launch of MK caught ANC sleeping. And because they were sleeping, they didn't prepare for many things. And when they were arguing in court, especially that first court case, you could tell that they had no explanation whatsoever why they had missed critical deadlines to oppose the registration of the MK party. And then at some point, Jabulani Khumalo is seen buying a very, very fancy car, or he's seen shopping around for a very, very fancy car. He's even wearing party regalia. I don't even know what the hell was happening. If you take money from someone to sell out your people, you don't go car shopping in KwaZulu-Natal in party regalia, where your party is the most popular and where people know who you are. They're going to take pictures of you. Those pictures are going to get back to Jacob Zuma, etc. And we saw when he was challenging his removal from the party and his removal as party leader in the courts, a case that he ultimately lost, and it was always obvious that he was going to lose. He now had that car. And he had another car, a Mercedes-Benz SUV, right, that his security guards were moving in. So it was clear that he had money to buy this big, what is the name of that car again? What's the car that he was driving? Please remind me in the comments. I can't remember. But he bought a Mercedes as well. So he had money for those two vehicles, money for security guards, money to get attorneys, to get advocates to represent him. So I think it's not rocket science to conclude that he was somebody that got infiltrated, right? And he was offered a bag. When it comes to, I have to say allegedly, but I think those who make those conclusions are not unreasonable to make them, right? I think when it comes to even older examples, the EFF itself was once infiltrated and they had to request 2 members of parliament to step down. At some point, it became apparent that members of parliament had received money from the CR17 camp, and President Ramaphosa had been giving these members of parliament money. And he said that it was for funerals and that he was just trying to support them. But it raised a lot of questions in the EFF and they had to ask them to leave. And if you believe some of the remarks that were said, that was an example of infiltration, right, of a political party. So if you think about that, it becomes evident that infiltration is possible. Part of the reason I think why COPE in and of itself did not survive is because it was infiltrated, right? There were some divisions in COPE which were, coming out as a result of people who were really trying to break COPE apart because they viewed it as an enemy to the ANC. They viewed it as a subversion to the ANC. And some of them were pro-Zuma people who wanted to actually just derail COPE. So even COPE was infiltrated. And the person who would have the most knowledge about infiltration is Jacob Zuma. He worked in intelligence. He understands how these kind of operations work. And it would be important for him to avoid infiltration of his political party if it's going to really be a political party that has longevity. The MK cannot retain members who are missing meetings in parliament, who are not in alignment with the leadership. MK has said that they told these 12 individuals that they were not supposed to be on the list. These individuals chose to swear in as members of parliament. Maybe they were crossing their fingers that, no, it's going to be fine later. Or they decided, let me get a few of these paychecks. These paychecks are large. I'm going to save this money. If these guys remove me at the list, I don't know. I think it will be important for the media to interview these members of parliament who are now going out so that they can get information from them. That's good journalism. I think that the party also was inevitably going to have challenges of infiltration, of miscoordination, because if you think about what MK achieved, they were launched in December, right? And they were able to get 2.5 million votes in a short space of time, 7 months. As you are doing all of those things, you're not going to be able to do due diligence on every step of the organizational flow chart, every step of every process. A political party is a complex operation. It's a large operation. You're not going to be able to do everything that you need to be able to do in order to make sure that your house is fully in order. It takes time. And other political parties like the Democratic Alliance have had decades to get those kind of things right, because they started off as a very small political party, grew a little bit in size, till they got to this 20% number. MK came in at 14%. That's very high. So these challenges were inevitable. A question that then arises is, will these firings affect the MK party? I don't think so, not at this particular point. I think that people are going to give this political party benefit of the doubt. If this happens again and again and again, then I think many people may think, no, something's wrong. Why is there so much turnover in the political party at the parliamentary level? I think that's something that's going to be harmful for the party if it happens again. At this particular point, even though this is very drastic, even though this is very unprecedented, I think that MK supporters understand what's happening in their party. They're not going to do anything right now to walk away. This is my view. I think MK party members are also still very angry at everything that happened in KwaZulu-Natal in particular, and they're not going to necessarily just walk away. A lot of people are there because they understand and support the leadership, which is Jacob Zuma, and they know the Jacob Zuma style of leadership. You may not like the Jacob Zuma style of leadership. You may not think that the Jacob Zuma style of leadership is effective, but MK members are very familiar with Jacob Zuma. They know that he has a heavy hand. They know that he's going to try to discipline people in his organization. They know that he plays these games of chess, and they're very familiar with him, right? Whether this is one of those games or not, I don't know. I'm not a member of the party. I'm just giving you my view that even though other people are saying, no, this is going to make MK supporters walk away, I don't think so. I think that they're going to understand that, their party is still cleaning house, that infiltration is an issue, that the stakes are very high, that, the next election is going to be so important that you do have to get your house in order. I think there will be benefit of the doubt. But if this happens over and over again, I think that there will be a different view. Now, what about the branding issue? Is the MK party going to lose this trademark case? We'll have to see what is argued. But at this particular point, even if they have to change the name somewhat, they can still change the name one or two ways, and they'll not lose an understanding right now of where they are and who they are to the public. The public now knows that there's a political vehicle, MK, or alternative name, insert here. They know that already. So I don't think that this particular case is going to have the same impact that it was going to have before the election. I don't think if they had never been able to get to the point of getting on the ballot, that would have been a different equation. But now with 2.5 million voters, there have been parties in different parts of Africa which have changed names but have retained supporters. In Zimbabwe, there was a party called Movement for Democratic Change. It got infiltrated by ZANU-PF, split up, divided over a long period of time. And then at some point, the leaders rebranded the party and said, no, the party is now the Citizens Coalition for Change. And the Citizens Coalition for Change was then able to contest, and they got 40-something plus % of the electorate. Obviously, there are issues that were raised about election rigging. The election in and of itself had issues. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the support base for the Movement for Democratic Change moved to the Citizens Coalition for Change, even though, Citizens Coalition for Change, even though the name had changed. Once you have established an entity, once people know who the leaders are, those kind of name changes don't have the same damage as if you never went in altogether. So I think that the MK is still going to be a factor. I think what they're going to really have to work on is how they stand out in parliament. And maybe these additions that they now have are going to help them in that respect. Because if they get Lucky Montana, Brian Molefe, these are individuals who come with some degree of controversy because they've been widely reported on and attacked, but they also are capable communicators. Brian Molefe, is viewed by many people as being one of the people who was able to prevent load shedding getting worse until he got fired. Then the load shedding got really bad, and we all know the story. So some people are really favorable towards him. And as somebody who's older, he does bring a lot of, executive management experience, which may then help the benches of the MK party. So we'll see if this turns out to be an asset. And that was something that, time will tell. But at this particular point, obviously a dramatic piece of news. Obviously, there are going to be many people who are critical of it. I think that at this particular stage, this is not a train smash for the MK party. But I'm open to persuasion. What do you think about everything that has been reported in respect to the expulsion of these 18 members of parliament? Do you think it's a blunder, or do you think it's a strong move by Jacob Zuma, by the MK party. Let's have a conversation. Till the next one.